Celebrating your consistency and courage in whatever you're doing is what we're going to be doing today in this episode of Enthusiastically Spiritual. So, welcome back. This episode was really inspired by myself because this week on June of 2025 is the 5-year anniversary of this podcast. So 5 years ago, I was in Australia during the big C word, COVID, and started this amazing expedition, this amazing podcast 5 years ago. And so much has happened and transpired in the 5 years that I really want to take a few moments and celebrate the commitment, the consistency, and the courage that it's taken to keep this going, and also how that you can relate to that in your life. So when we think about the courage to keep going with something and when maybe the energy's waned, and honestly, there's been times when the energy has waned in this podcast. And if you maybe don't understand a lot about podcasts, or maybe do, a lot of podcasts don't last too long because people give up. The energy wanes, they give up, and they move on. And so keeping that consistency throughout whatever you're doing in life really is the key to, I'll say it, mastery, honestly, because it's when we throw in the towel, maybe too soon, or maybe it's time to throw in the towel and it's the right timing. But having that courage to make those decisions along your path are really, well, they're pretty crucial in what you've come to do for your unique journey. And there are a lot of things that try to keep us throwing us off our tracks. And a couple of these things are that others don't get what you're doing or why you're doing it. And when I think about this part, I look back to when I got divorced. And since then, which has been almost 8 years, I lost contact with the two souls I brought in. I lost contact with other people along the way. And a lot of that was about the fact that, well, I obviously stimulated a lot within them of, what the other person and how their reactions and emotions, played into this whole scenario. But in recognizing that they didn't understand or know what I'm going through or why I've done what I've done. And so, it doesn't have to be divorce. It can be even, a change in a career, or maybe you decide to stop doing something that you've been doing for a long time. And there will be, or maybe people around you that don't understand what's going on or why you've done what you've done. And you know what I say to that these days is great, because we're all on individual solo journeys. And we're all here to learn and grow, but our solo journeys is us doing it by ourselves with some support from, our spiritual helpers, which, we talk about a lot on this podcast, the fact that we've got, backing from the other side, and our, spiritual perceptions, those knowings, seeings, hearings, and feelings that support the journey along the path. But it's really up to us individually as to how do we maneuver through it. What twists and turns do we go down? What doors do we open? What doors do we close? And many times others are not going to understand this, and that's really a good thing, because it's not for them to understand, it's for us. And, this isn't saying that, to hurt people along the way, even though, there's some of the things that I've done. I know I have hurt people along the way, because when I sit down and say, yeah, I want a divorce, that hurt the other person. But the timing was right. I had to do what I needed to do. And other people just are not going to understand. So that's one thing that can throw us off from the next steps we're ready to take. The other thing is society and what's perceived as right or wrong. So especially I'll go around marriage again, and how, to death do us part. What the fuck? That is the craziest line ever. To death do us part. As the Earth's crust shifts and changes, our lives do the same. One way to maneuver through the small and large moments that shake us to the core is by reviving your connection to spirit, gathering ways to cleanse your energy field, embracing spiritual awarenesses to give you a bigger picture, and knowing that you are not alone on your journey can be a great support.
The Soulquake Survival Guidebook is a great companion to meet you where you're at and support reviving your connection to spirit in earth-shaking times. Get your copy today through Amazon worldwide in paperback, ebook, or in audio, and begin embracing more clarity, inner peace, and enthusiasm for your life and what you've come to do.
Now, I truly believe that as far as connecting with other souls on our journeys, sure, there's some that maybe we may be around the whole entire time we're here in this lifetime, but then there's a lot we're not going to be. People, come and go. And so recognizing that to death do us part, that's really it's a challenging one to put my hands into, because the fact that I don't believe in that anymore. I really believe that there may be a time when we may be with someone for a certain length of time, and then we may shift, and there may be someone else that comes in that we may need to learn and grow with. So recognizing that when society says something and it's the perceived norm or the perceived way to move through whatever we're going through, sometimes it may not resonate. And it really doesn't with me any longer. Now, years ago, yes, I would have said I was definitely in a place where I didn't believe or didn't understand or remember all that I do understand these days, especially around the spiritual part of who we are as a soul and the journeys we take as solo individual souls, and then those that we interact with. So in recognizing that there's some things that may come into play for your courage and your way that you're going to move forward in whatever that looks like for your journey at this moment in time, is important, because it really is just an understanding and like a leveling up of where you're at energetically and where others are at energetically. And this has been a real big key for the last few weeks I've been working on, is just letting go of another layer of my onion, of recognizing that it's okay where people are at. And this has been a true challenge for myself, because as people say things, or maybe they do things that I'm can allow myself to be influenced by. And when I recognize that, what, that's their journey, and I'm just I'm like I'm kind of like walking side by side with them, but they have to enjoy their journey, and they have to make their masterful mistakes and not masterful mistakes, ways that they want to work with whatever they're here to work with. And again, this has been a really big thing for me, because I tend to like to control things. I tend to like to control people and situations and have everyone understand what I understand. But in recognizing that, my friends, is really a very courageous way to move forward, and recognizing that when others don't get what we're doing, it's okay. And what are the societal norms and should and shouldn'ts, and how does that resonate with what we're doing? So, in looking at all this, and it takes courage really to be here in the right now. And the last 5 years that I've been doing this podcast, there's been times when the energy has waned, when I've thought of throwing in the towel. And there's a lot of podcasts that don't make it very long. Most of them actually don't. So to make it this far is really out of the norm. And whatever you're doing in your life, and if it's something that you've been doing for 5, 10 years, 2 years, 2 months, or whatever it is, in recognizing there's, being consistent, and also recognizing that, maybe when it's time to change, it's time to change. And so for myself, over the last few years, if you've, whether or not you've been a listener from the beginning, or you caught this podcast halfway through the last 5 years or the last couple months, I first off want to really thank you so much for listening in and being someone who, especially those that have, commented and really shared how much they're getting out of these episodes. I appreciate you so much, because this has been something that, for myself, I would say the one consistency that's kept me going the whole time is my enthusiasm. my ability to still be excited to share about the spiritual part of who we are, about remembering. And if you've, been a listener for a long time now, you recognize that when I first started, I did solo episodes, and then I really moved into the interviews, and I did several years of really interview after interview every single week. And then I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I kind of maxed out that and ready to move into a different format. And that's when Tom stepped in. And so it's been a really beautiful transformation, and recognizing for your journey also that as you move through things, it might shift and change to look differently. And that's great. And that's okay. Or if it stays the same, that's great too. It's whatever works for you and your solo part of the journey.
We exist in a highly intellectual world, and often the feeling part where your inner wisdom lies gets left out. There's a way to feel more in balance with all parts of yourself. This way is by accessing a spiritual bigger picture of who you are as a soul. Check out the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Wayshowers College to support your journey and moving through this game of life. Your intellect and feeling parts will love it.
And so, coming in, and that's why I really wanted to do this episode by myself, because I started as solo. And so I thought it would be a really good moment just to capture kind of the feelings I had, around this podcast, around the courage to keep going, because I know a lot of people, maybe throw in the towel a little too early, or maybe or maybe they don't. And so recognizing and celebrating wherever you're at in this moment of time and whatever you're doing is important. So whether or not this podcast goes on for another couple years or another couple months, who's to say? Because I'm also a person, and I don't know, you might recognize this with some of the sharings I've had on this podcast, but I do and I can shift the lanes, and I'll say it like it's a car. Like I can move off the interstate and go down another turnpike very quickly when it's the right timing. And so I know that there are new things coming down the road, but at the moment, I'm still enjoying and still very enthusiastic about sharing on this podcast and on this platform. So would love to hear back from you, where you're at in your journey and how you've enjoyed these episodes, and the courage in celebrating you also, what's courageous about what you're going through right now, and would love to celebrate that with you on this 5th anniversary of this podcast. And so with that, I feel the energy's good, and I feel that it's time to say that again, thank you so much for listening in. And wherever you're at, make sure that, you are also celebrating the courage to be in the now, right now, and working however you want to do that solo journey with those also around you. So just remember that life is too short to not be enthusiastic about your unique journey. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.